Okay, so I speak to a lot of property management companies, as I'm sure you do too. Then, and I know some of the questions I get are there's so many different strategies about how you structure your team here, right? And now I'm not talking about necessarily remote versus in-house at this point, but just the structure. How the team is organized, and each type of approach has its own pros and cons. So there's portfolio models, right? There's departmental functional teams, and there's hybrid. From your perspective and what you see kind of in, I guess, working with companies out there on their staffing efficiency, what's the most efficient model for optimizing staffing in your mind?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the old "it depends" answer.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it does, right?
One of the things that when you go to if you've ever been to a NARPM conference or a product manager conference, we always ask like, how many doors do you manage? And everybody's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense because it doesn't really matter because it's about the revenue, the profit.
I used to hate
But
that question, Pete. I mean, same exact reason.
but operationally, Bob, it matters. Operationally, I can't if I'm running 980 units and you're running 50, my org chart is going to be completely different than your org chart.
That's true.
And the systems that I have are completely different. So I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer that I believe. I believe when you first start off, your portfolio, you're basically portfolio based, right? You're doing everything yourself up to say 50 units, right? And so you're a property manager, but you're also a leasing agent. You're wearing every hat known to man, right? Your org chart literally has one box with every functionality in property management. And then when you hit about 50 units, you're like, holy crap, I can't grow anymore. I'm underwater. I'm working late. I'm not making as much money as when I quit my job. So I need help. And that's where you go into hybrid. And then you just take a couple of hats and you split off like an amoeba and you say, okay, here. And this is where I believe a virtual assistant is really helpful because if you hire somebody in the US, the salary requirements are really high. So you can have somebody and you can say, all right, I don't like these three things. These functions, I really don't like them. So I'm going to go ahead and create a job description for these three things. And now I'm hybrid. Well, now when you get to, let's say 200 units, and now in between that 50 and 200, you're still hybrid, but you just keep splitting off some of those hats, so to speak. And now instead of one assistant, maybe you have four, right? Or five even. Well, at some point, and it's around the 300 door mark is what I found, is you have to move from hybrid to departmental.
Yes.
And so now you have people that are responsible for specific parts of the business. Right. So you have your maintenance team, your turn coordinator, your leasing team, your resident services team, your whatever that is, right? And then what I found is I got to about 980,000 doors. Departmental worked fine for us. But when I went to Mind, and I think you'll see this at Pure or Evernest or bigger companies, they tend to go to the pod structure is kind of after departmental.
I was going to ask about that, the pod structure. Yeah.
Yep. And so now one of to bring the virtual assistants back in, like when I ran the departments, my virtual assistant team actually ran each department. So I didn't have somebody in the US. I actually had a virtual assistant as a supervisor on other VAs to run those departments. And I think one of the mistakes that people make is like, well, I only want to give them a checklist and they only do that checklist. They actually can do a lot more. They can be an integral part of your organization. But if you don't have the right org chart, then chaos ensues is what I found.
Sure. And let's be clear. I mean, at a Mind or an Evernest or Pure, I mean, I don't know much about the other companies, but I think the pod structure works. And if we could talk about that just for a few seconds to let people know what that is. It's basically like there are models of staffing based on probably how many doors are in that particular branch office, right? And the reason that works at a larger corporate entity like a Mind or something is that some of the functions get picked up at the corporate level. For example, accounting, right?
Yep.
So you're centralizing some of the expenses that the branch office isn't paying for anymore. Is that how you see it?
I do. I don't know if anybody actually has cracked the code on, being able to manage 50 or 100,000 units across the country just yet. Nope. But pod structure seems to be one of the ways people are trying to figure that out.